A few months ago, billions of people reappeared after 5 years away, sending the world into turmoil. We need new heroes. Ones suited for the times we're in. Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. And this thing, I don't know if there's ever been a greater symbol, but it's more about the man who propped it up. And he's gone. So today we honor Steve's legacy, but also we look to the future. Thank you, Captain America. But this belongs to you.
From Providence, Rhode Island, welcome to the MCU Diaries. It's a podcast dedicated to every Marvel Studios series on Disney+. So sit back, relax, and let's break down Earth's mightiest heroes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MCU Diaries. I'm your host, Blake Larsen, and today we are diving right in, head first, into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I am very happy to do so. I will say that I am certainly going to miss WandaVision. It feels weird to do this show and have it not be WandaVision. It was such a great experience to dive in and break it down and talk about theme and talk about the character study that it was. And now having a show in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that is certainly not a character study, but it's certainly a study in character and a study in theme, but one that is far more conventionally the MCU. But in a good way, I would argue, in a good way. And I'm happy to be back and doing more Marvel with all of you. So if you want to get in touch with me and have your thoughts and opinions made ready and made heard, you can look at us at Mary and Blake on all of the different kinds of social media, whether it is Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or YouTube, or if you want to email me, you can at maryandblakemedia@gmail.com, where we get a chance to talk about all the great stuff that the MCU is now giving us. And, of course, there is the Mary and Blake Facebook group. It is exclusive, it is free, and it is awesome. Just go to Facebook, type in Mary and Blake, and you can meet up with all the different nerds that are there chatting, whether it's something like it's WandaVision or The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or if it's Outlander, This Is Us, Game of Thrones. It could be anything that we're covering, my wife and I, who you heard on the last podcast, or it could just be whatever they love. That's all that matters to us there at the Mary and Blake Facebook group. But now it is time to chat The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 101, the premiere, New World Order. Yes, that is right, ladies and gents. We're talking the premiere of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and what a premiere it was. One that is action-packed, one that is full of pathos and full of exposition and getting us up to date with the story of where it begins and where it wants to go. I would say that the New World Order is certainly, again, more conventionally Marvel than WandaVision, but it also reminds us that convention is what defines an old world struggling to become a new world, and finding our place in that new world. And as Sam says in the beginning of this podcast, maybe this new world needs new heroes. Maybe he's not the one for it. But then again, who would be? In this instance, it's only inevitable that The Falcon and the Winter Soldier draw comparisons to Marvel's first event television show in WandaVision. even though it was supposed to premiere before WandaVision, and you can certainly tell, given the scene that I just played and the coda that's given to Captain America in the cold open, I'm not completely sure that those comparisons to WandaVision are either fair or even warranted. WandaVision, it felt purposely weird. It was supposed to be that way. But in a way that best served its characters that it was studying. That kind of show, at least the way that it was written and directed, is certainly tailored to the weird, magical type lifestyle that Wanda is embarking on. Whereas The Falcon and the Winter Soldier feels purposely MCU. But again, in a way that feels... and in a way that best serves its characters. Falcon is not meant for the world that WandaVision inhabits. Neither is Bucky. Not meant for that weirdness, that abject functional weirdness that we talked about last episode. Irrespective of either of the show's styles, there is a commonality that exists between both of them. A very important commonality. And that is, how do these characters move forward? For Wanda, it was confronting her grief. For Sam and Bucky, though, their journeys forward begin and end with the discovery of their purpose. But in order to start this journey forward, it begins with echoing the past. Yes, I know that sounds... You're in a mental popsicle or a mental pretzel, and I get it. But let's break that down. Sam needs to find his role in the world now that he has returned from what we are calling here the blip. After he has saved the universe from Thanos. In this functionality, in this new world, can Sam play both in the avenues that of being the dutiful Uncle Sam, as well as the high-flying Falcon? That remains to be seen. Bucky, however, needs to secure his spot in a functioning society now that he is no longer the Winter Soldier, and there are no more wars to be fought after also helping to defeat Thanos. Oddly enough, though, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier places significant emphasis on the past in multiple ways, and most primarily on measuring these two characters, Sam and Bucky, against their best friend, Steve Rogers. Captain America's absence looms large over the proceedings of New World Order, particularly on the effect that he has on both Sam and Bucky. It's no coincidence that the episode's cold open begins with Sam preparing a suit by ironing out the wrinkles while the Captain America shield waits in the old leather bag once given to Sam by old Steve Rogers in Avengers Endgame. The ironing out is a visual representation of Sam's current state of mind. He is ironing out the details of his life while preparing to maintain the veneer of a more mortal Sam Wilson, or the Falcon, as opposed to what seems to be immortal Captain America. Consider also that the first bit of dialogue is taken from Avengers Endgame, when Steve asks Sam, "How does it feel?" And Sam timidly replies, "Feels like it belongs to someone else." As an audience, we are immediately presented with the notion that Sam has rejected Steve's literal passing of the Captain America torch, or in this case, shield, and that Sam's arc will eventually consist of his being worthy or discovering acceptance, that the shield is, in fact, his. This arc is further cemented by the surprisingly poignant conversation shared between Sam and Rhodey.
Crazy to think that nobody's going to be carrying the shield.
Hey, we went for 70 years without anybody carrying it when Steve was on ice, so I think we're all right.
It's a different time, Sam. So you're going to make me ask? Why didn't you take up the mantle?
When Steve first told me about the shield, the first words I said were, "It feels like it belongs to someone else." That someone else is Steve.
World's a crazy place right now. People are... Well, nobody's stable. Allies are now enemies. Alliances are all torn apart. The world's broken. Everybody's just looking for somebody to fix it. It's a new day, brother.
What's more about this conversation is that it takes place while they're traversing the literal relics that make up what the public perceives to be the foundational aspects of Captain America, even in quotes, Captain America. Those are the things that Sam believes are Captain America. Not necessarily the shield or the motorcycle or even all the words of the Vanished. That does not make up Captain America to Sam. It's the man that makes up Captain America. And Sam stands with Rhodey. By the way, again, a fantastic surprise cameo by Don Cheadle. Sam and Rhodey stand in the shadow of Captain America while having this conversation. But I'm also positive at the same time that this series will help redefine what Steve already knew and what Sam is destined to ascertain. Captain America isn't a shield or an outfit. Rather, it's an ideal. Don't be surprised to hear Sam utter the phrase, "I can do this all day," at least once by the end of this series. A much more subtle connection to Steve is made through the inner workings of Bucky's psyche. Bucky's life has always been defined in contrast to his old pal Steve. Whether it was when Bucky saved Steve in an alleyway of Brooklyn in Captain America the First Avenger, or more literally as a direct foil to Captain America in Captain America the Winter Soldier, or finally as a friend or a mission for Steve to prove Bucky's innocence in Captain America Civil War. In what is probably one of my favorite scenes in this entire episode, Bucky's therapist may think it's utter bullshit that he wants to find peace in this foreign world, but there is truth to his battle when he's trying to discover what it means to be Bucky. Now that he's no longer the Winter Soldier, he doesn't have his friend Steve, and there are no more wars to be fought. Notice the incredible direction of this scene. Bucky is framed by the painting of the woods in the background and the extreme close-ups on their faces. He is still lost in the proverbial woods, but his therapist is trying to make him confront his past so he can redefine his future. Unlike many instances, Bucky shies away from people who surround him in life and in relationships. The extreme close-ups are a visual cue that Bucky, in this case, cannot shy away, cannot hide. The angles are canted. They're off-kilter, even, lending to the emotional fragility and uncertainty facing Bucky. He cannot escape his past, and he cannot move forward either. And after taking solace and finding definition in war, what does one do once they have proven themselves victorious in the biggest battle of them all, defeating Thanos? It's not an accident that Bucky found the most comfort in Wakanda, a place where he was unencumbered by his nightmare of the Winter Soldier or even the need to fight. Right now, Bucky is a man from another time, and much is made about his specific age of being 106. Yes, it's certainly played off as a joke, but he simply doesn't understand his place in the world, and he uses Takashima as a way of maintaining himself in his own reality. He may not be the Winter Soldier anymore, but his deeds are still his, and those nightmares he endures of killing Takashima's son are the only aspect of his life grounding him in that reality. And while I'm disappointed that Sam and Bucky don't have scenes together, there is a necessity to paint a picture of both of these men living separate lives and giving them the breathing room to understand their proper motivations. It's even essential to see that Bucky has been avoiding people, and even his connection, albeit playfully antagonistic in nature, to Sam via the ignored text messages. By just juxtaposing their mundane lives, going to therapy, crossing names off the amends list, or trying to get loans at a bank, or even trying to uphold the family business, juxtaposing these things against their superhero lives, there is a clearer sense of who these people are outside of their highly publicized life as Avengers. As a benefit of this format, the TV format that is, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier can explore these very specific characteristics of our heroes that the larger MCU films just simply don't have the narrative bandwidth to navigate. But again, at the same time, this show can also reference the film DNA of its cinematic predecessors in an organic fashion while remaining true to its character-centric nature. Here's an example. The New World Order references Captain America Winter Soldier in many ways. Whether it's Sam's nearly identical jump off the plane when compared to Steve's same jump at the beginning of the film, or using Georges Batroc, who originally appeared in Winter Soldier as the villain who attempts to steal the American military attaché in New World Order, or when we first meet Bucky as the Winter Soldier killing a bunch of log carriers in the hotel. All of these echo the Winter Soldier. There's even a rhyming here for when we first meet Bucky and Captain America the First Avenger, and in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as both highlight Bucky jumping in to stop an alleyway fight in Brooklyn. Both instances, the alleyway rescue and even the nightmare, are meant to evoke both of Bucky's past lives and how they are respective thesis and antithesis of Bucky's existence. As such, the story going forward for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier will certainly center around Bucky's journey to unite the thesis and antithesis into a newly formed synthesis. How can you take two opposing views and go forward? That synthesis, in whatever form it may take, will come from the answer in what it means to be Bucky Barnes when there is no Steve, no Winter Soldier, and no more wars to be fought. Steve Rogers' absence, though, doesn't loom large over only just Sam and Bucky. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier wisely utilizes its past film DNA to comment on our main character's current state of mind, but it also acknowledges an absence of Captain America's role in society as well. The world is falling apart. Alliances, as Rhodey says, are now in disarray. And as much as Bucky and Sam's journey is about how to move forward, the government's answer to find stability is to revert back to a simpler time when Captain America was around to help keep the world in check. They look to the past to see if they can create stability. So they simply crown a new Captain America. Now, there is a whole commentary here that can be explored about the government's choice. Why did they not let Sam keep the shield? Why didn't they propose Steve's choice of Sam as the new Captain America? Why did they keep the process hidden from Sam in the first place? And is it purposeful that their new choice is a white man instead of a black man? Add this to the notion that Sam and his sister simply cannot obtain an SBA loan because the restrictions have, in quotes, have tightened since the blip. And there's some pretty serious grounds here for racial discrimination being at play. I'll say this. I'm a middle-aged, middle-class, 38-year-old white man. I won't get on my soapbox about this argument, whether I'm right or wrong. But I will say that if this is what showrunner Malcolm Spellman is trying to accomplish, then the message is received, and he's doing it in an excellent fashion. The pointed racial commentary is told in an effective manner, but naming a new Captain America in the style of a pseudo cliffhanger also comments on Sam and Bucky's respective journeys in this show. Now that there is a new Captain America, How do Sam and Bucky respond? Because of their specific ties to Steve, what does this appointment say about them and their role in society? Is it also a coincidence that there's a brand new anti-patriotic group known as the Flag Smashers that is introduced at the same time as a brand new Captain America? Well, fans of the comics will know that this new Captain America is actually a character named John Walker, who he has similar capabilities to Steve. Those powers were given to him by a character in a company called the Power Broker. And John Walker, he's not a good dude, and neither is Power Broker. In fact, in the comics, Walker is very much a supervillain. And I wonder if the guy who broke Taurus's orbital bone was given the same powers, because he had these immense powers, clearly. If he was given to them, well, if he was given those powers by Power Broker as well. And that's all I'm going to say, in fear of spoiling the rest of the show. Judging this episode on its own is a very hard task because it is clearly just the first chapter of a much larger story. Being on Disney Plus and having the benefit of taking place in the MCU affords the Falcon and the Winter Soldier the opportunity to not play by the original broadcast rules of a normal pilot. As such, there is no traditional occurrence of events where event X happens, so our protagonist must do Y to change. There's not a typical 4-act structure. There's not an inciting incident. I mean, there is a definition of mundanity juxtaposed against the excitement in their lives, but there is no inciting incident that necessarily starts our story. Unless, of course, naming the new Captain America is the inciting incident, and now our characters must choose how they are going to go and how they're going to act moving forward. You could argue, too, that there is a subtle inciting incident with the Flag Smashers taking the money from the bank or whatever they did. It was relatively confusing on what the actual purpose here was for that. But then again, our characters don't react to that in live time. It only is a mention by Torres. And it has nothing to do with Bucky at that moment. But the naming of a new Captain America at the end of this episode certainly will involve Bucky, and it will definitely involve Sam. That could be argued as the inciting incident if you wanted to make that case. Either way, it's no coincidence that this episode begins with Steve passing the mantle of Captain America to Sam, only for Sam to later reject it, and then the episode concludes with John Walker being named Captain America by the American government. Our story begins and ends with Captain America. And everything in between is the definition of our main character's acceptance of the roles in their world. The problem with both Sam and Bucky is that their stasis is not good for either of them. They cannot remain in their current lives, and they will need each other to unearth what their new roles will be inside the New World Order. It's time for Apropos of Nothing for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 101, New World Order. First, I can't think of a more antithetical antagonist to everything Captain America represents than a group named the Flag Smashers, who seem to be a not-so-subtle stand-in for the Proud Boys. Keep an eye on this group and a potential connection to the new Captain America. Just saying that out loud right now. Marvel Studios head honcho Kevin Feige said that this new season was going to start off with a bang, and boy, was he right. An entire 10-minute sequence, a quarter of the episode's runtime, is dedicated to the intense opening act of the attaché's rescue. It's visceral, and it's competently shot, and it must have cost a ton of money. It's rumored that each of these episodes cost $25 million. But as a first episode, this 10-minute action sequence, and also the cold open, where Sam is ironing his shirt, immediately sets a perfect expectation for what this show is going to be like going forward. As an introduction to Sam, eventually later Bucky. In this show, because of the cold open and the action sequence, you should expect, as a viewer, to see big set pieces, incredible stunt work, and the tiring battle sequences that put you right in the front seat of the action amidst finding out who these characters truly are. It is a perfect introduction to what the Falcon and the Winter Soldier will be. I will say, though, the big action sequences, especially as it gets to the close combat, they are shot in a style that drives me bananas. I call this the Taken syndrome, where instead of having competently shot action scenes, they take mini shots, mini clips, and they splice them all together, and it's so frenetic. It was basically started by The Bourne Identity, and it was taken to whole new heights in the franchise Taken with Liam Neeson. In Taken, there's one sequence of events with Liam Neeson jumping over a fence. In that sequence, there are at least 6 or 7 cuts. It drives me crazy. And the close quarter action sequences and the close quarter fighting in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier also fall prey to this style shooting. Next, Red Wing is a great callback to Falcon's actual pet and buddy, who was actually a real Falcon in the comics. Torres is clearly an echo of the comic book character who actually takes up the mantle of Falcon when Sam becomes the new Captain America. Food for thought. Bucky has been pardoned from all of the crimes he has committed as long as he attends therapy sessions. And the therapist pulling out her pen and taking notes is such a great passive-aggressive move, and I'm so happy that Malcolm Spellman has brought this to light, because Bucky knows it, you know it, and I know it. It is so passive-aggressive, and I hate it when it happens, because I've been there, I've done it, and I have all the receipts for my co-pays to prove it. Notice a couple of names on Bucky's amends list, by the way. P.W. Hauser. This could be a fun little call out to Sebastian Stan's co-star in I, Tonya, Paul Walter Hauser, whom you can now find in Netflix's Cobra Kai. Also, there is H. Zemo, who we can pretty safely assume is Helmut Zemo, as played by Daniel Bruhl in Captain America Civil War, where he was the main antagonist for the Avengers. People thinking that Steve Rogers is on the moon is the best little in-world conspiracy theory I've heard in a long time. And it provides such a great back and forth between Torres and Sam. This right here, this conspiracy theory, the kind of world that it is now sprout from, and the interaction is exactly the kind of character work I want from this Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I have no idea what LAF or laugh is. Your guess is certainly as good as mine. And here's a note for every single guy, like every guy that is single. When a girl pulls out Battleship because they want to play a game with you, you do everything in your power to marry that woman. That's it. When a girl pulls out Battleship, that is a very good sign. Speaking of that, I love that Bucky has to leave his date because of the very kind bartender, how she would not shut up about Yori's son. It is sad, but it shows you that no matter how much therapy Bucky intakes, he still cannot reconcile his life with his past deeds. It's as if he is maintaining this friendship to punish himself, and he can't let go of punishing himself yet. Lastly, not only does The Falcon and the Winter Soldier take visual cues from past Captain America films, but it also utilizes many of Henry Jackman's musical themes from those movies too. You can actually hear the cues from the Falcon's theme and a lot of Captain America's theme as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they splice all these themes together to form their own musical sonic language. It should be an excellent journey. That is it now for this episode, ladies and gents. Again, this is one that is a good episode, but it is hard to judge on its own just because it is obviously just the first chapter. It is something that the MCU, I think, is certainly guilty of doing, not telling a complete story. Well, not necessarily a complete story, but at least a complete through line of events in this first episode. But then again, you can't measure what the MCU does against traditional TV storytelling. Each pilot, whatever it is, I mean, let's look back at the Breaking Bad pilot. That told a satisfying, complete story in and of itself. Just in the pilot alone, you could watch the pilot alone and say, okay, I get where this is going. And it has a relative end to it. This leaves off on a cliffhanger to suck you in, to take some more in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I look forward to seeing how the rest of the episodes, the remaining 5, enlighten and inform this particular episode. But for now, let's close this out, shall we? Man, that music's so good. It really is good. I really like it. It's a good theme for this show. So that is that, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the MCU Diaries and this first premiere episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and how it relates to the MCU Diaries. I look forward to continuing to break down this show with you as we go along. And if you want to get in touch with me to hear your voices and in your thoughts on this podcast, you can just look me up on all of the social media just for Mary and Blake, whether it is Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. We're there. We're ready to receive all your messages and bring them up in the show as necessary. And of course, I do want you to also take a look at a great community that we have established at jointhenerdclan.com. And that is a way to help support this show and be a part of an amazing community of nerds who love what they love and want to be a part of a community that allows them to be who they are. In addition to getting the community, you get also great benefits like bonus episodes and premium podcasts of shows that my wife and I are doing, whether it is shows like the After Dark show or it is book clubs or any of the things that you love as a nerd. Trust me, it is there at jointhenerdclan.com. And that is a way to help keep independent companies and podcasts like this one going. And trust me, we would love it and we would benefit from it, and it would be a great thing to be a part of. That's it for now, though, ladies and gents. Until next time, I'll see you next episode.